So here's a diagram with alternate interior angles. And we know that alternate interior angles are congruent. I want to show you how to use notation when the angles have letters instead of numbers. So here we see in blue two angles that are congruent because they're alternate interior. They are interior to the parallel lines. So here's the interior part of the parallel lines. It's the angles inside and between the two parallel lines, and they're alternating across the transversal. So if we start with our first pair of angles, angle DEC and angle GJF, let's look at those. So here we have angle DEG. Notice how, or DEC rather, notice how I have denoted it. I have points D, E, and C to denote this angle. I could have also denoted it angle CED. Either way is fine. I don't want to say angle E, however, because there are 4 possibilities for angle E. So angle DEC is congruent to angle GJF. So down here we have angle GJF. And they're congruent to each other because they're on alternate sides of the transversal and interior to the two parallel lines. Then we have angle AED, and angle AED, we see the letters here, angle point A, point E, and point D. So this angle AED is congruent to angle IJF, and here's point I, here's point J, and here's point F. Those two angles are congruent because they're also alternate interior angles. They're in between the two parallel lines, interior, and they're alternating on opposite sides of your transversal. So now let's move on to our next topic. Our next topic is going to combine the definitions of interior angles, like we just worked with the definition of same side angles. So this time we're going to work with same side interior angles. So remember, interior angles are the angles that are in between the two parallel lines. Same side angles are angles that are on the same side of your transversal. So let's put all of that together. When we put all that together, we end up with same side interior angles. Let's start with picture 2, since that's the way we're used to seeing our parallel lines. So here with picture 2, same side, well, you'll notice the alternate interior angles that are congruent. The same side interior angles are going to be angles 6 and 4 and angles 5 and 3. 5 and 3 are on the same side of the transversal, and angle 6 and angle 4 are on the same side of the transversal. All of those angles are interior to the two parallel lines. So they're same side interior angles. So clearly same side interior angles are not congruent, right? So what do you think the relationship is? Well, if you look at angle 4 and angle 6, one of those is our acute angle and one is our obtuse angle. Can you tell which is which? 6 is our acute angle, and 3 is actually our acute angle as well. 4 is our obtuse angle. 5 is an obtuse angle as well. What do we know about our obtuse angles and our acute angles? The acute ones are congruent to each other and the obtuse ones are congruent to each other. Therefore, what is the relationship between same side interior angles? They're supplementary, right? There's an obtuse and acute that are going to add up to equal 180. If you think back to our original picture, we would know that angle 1 is congruent to angle 4, angle 2 is congruent to angle 3, and these top parallel lines. And we know that 1 is congruent to 2, and if angle 1 is congruent to angle 2, then angle 4 has to be congruent to angle 6. Angle 4 has to be supplementary to angle 6. So if angle 1 is congruent to angle 4, and angle 2 is congruent to angle 6, and 1 and 2 are supplementary, then 4 and 6 have to be supplementary as well. Okay, let me show you that by looking at picture 1. So we'll reinforce this idea by looking at a picture sideways. or different than we're used to seeing it. So it's on its side. So here we have our two parallel lines. 1, 2. We have our transversal that intersects our two parallel lines. So we're looking at the angles that are interior of the two parallel lines. And this time we're looking on the same side of the transversal. So we're looking at the angles that are on the same side of the transversal. So angle 3 and angle 2, we're looking at their relationship, and angle 7 and angle 6, we're looking at their relationship. Again, if we were to draw all these angles out, we know that 8 and 3 are congruent because they are vertical. Angles 4 and angle 7 are congruent because they're vertical. Angle 5 and 2 are congruent because they're vertical. Angle 1 and 6 are congruent because they're vertical. And of course, the 4 angles that we have on one parallel line are congruent to the 4 angles we have on the other parallel line, and that's the corresponding angles. So, since we know that angle 4 and angle 3 are supplementary, and we know that angle 4 is the same as angle 2, and we know that they're congruent, and 4 is supplementary to 3, then 3 and 2 must be supplementary. So that's one way to look at it. Let's look at the other ones. So let's look down here at angles 8 and 7. If we know that angle 8 is congruent to angle 6, and angle 8 and angle 7 are supplementary, then angle 7 and angle 6 must also be supplementary. So let's move on from here. Take just a second and pause and fill in the angles to complete each of these statements. In picture 1, the following angles are same side interior and therefore supplementary. In picture 2, the following angles are same side interior and therefore supplementary. And you can just use the numbers to label each of the angles.